So I guess I'll start with like some of the folklore of Wisconsin, man.
Yeah,
We
let's
have a
do it.
lot of crazy stuff that goes on up here in the north. So we have everything from Ed Gein to Jeffrey Dahmer to Black River Falls to I think it's a basilica in Holy Hill that was founded by a priest or monk that murdered his fiance after he was defrocked, I guess.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy up here. So, but the story that I'm going to kind of talk about today is the curse of Black River Falls. So, it inspired a movie in 1999 called The Wisconsin Death Trip. Also inspired Static X's album or song of the same name.
Great, great, great album.
And so in the 1890s, there was a drying up of the lumber industry and the mining industry. The smelting processes kind of just were no longer viable in that area.
Okay.
So this led into a pretty harsh winter. Diphtheria took over in the town of Black River Falls, and people started believing that essentially Satan worship and witchcraft had been taking hold in the town. Just to name some cases, we had an elderly lady of her 60s. She discovered a small sore on her back and believed it to be cancer. Since she thought it was going to kill her, she went in the backyard and doused herself in kerosene and self-immolated.
Whoa.
And then there was Mrs. John Larson, a local farmer's wife. She believed the devil was coming after her. She felt that the only way to make it stop was to take her 3 children with her, and drowned them all together.
Oh my goodness.
Then there was a case of Sarah Smith. She essentially was in a trance, is what they say. It's weird because, like, if you're a coroner or whatever, or a undertaker, like, you'd think you'd recognize somebody in a trance versus somebody who's dead.
Right.
Well, they thought she was dead.
Wow.
So she had the misfortune of being buried alive, and
Wow.
That's a great fear.
somehow they dug her up, and when they dug her up, she had bitten off half of her fingers off of her hand, and she was dead at that point. But yeah, pretty grim stuff. There's tons and tons and tons of just these stories in this town, and it makes you wonder, like, was there actual like witchcraft going on in this town? And there's tons of these stories all over Wisconsin. We're kind of like an inverted world ourselves.
Yeah, sounds like it. I haven't really considered Wisconsin all that much.
It's cold.
But now I want to go. Yeah, that's probably why. But that's weird. It sounds like it could be like a mass hysteria event, or evil was possessing this town and they couldn't escape. That's really crazy, especially the being buried alive story. That was a huge fear, like amongst people for a long time. Even in like where I grew up, there was people buried in like the late 19th century who had certain things put into their vaults in case they were buried alive. You know,
that's like wild. The little bells or whatever that they would have, so you could pull it if you were buried alive,
just in case. Yeah, just in case. I actually knew there's a mausoleum near where I grew up, and the guy had a doorbell installed inside his mausoleum. Should he wake up and find himself walking towards the door, there was a doorbell it would go right to the crypt keeper's house. And
if I walked through a cemetery and there was a doorbell, I would probably just dive.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy.
They actually disassembled it because it's near a college campus, and the students would at night do pranks on the crypt keeper, and they'd be ringing the doorbell, and obviously this guy's not alive. He was a famous guy of his time. He like designed parks and stuff, but yeah, he's still in the vault as far as I know. But so that's crazy. I didn't know about the Wisconsin Death Trip, and that's kind of like where that all comes from.
Yeah, I definitely would suggest checking out the film. It's really, really good.
I will. And it's all centered around that one town.
Yeah. Actually, I was doing a little research actually before this to see if I could find anything else in Wisconsin. A lot of towns in Wisconsin have a lot of pretty cryptic history. I used to live in Kenosha actually, and there is it's like a religious girls' school, and I guess there's stories of these girls. They would get put in this school because they were quote unquote in trouble, meaning pregnant out of wedlock, and So there was a lot of self-induced
Mm,
infanticide, let's say,
right. Wow.
uh, on the shores of Lake Michigan. Holy Hill, like I said, lots of stuff in uh, Appleton and all sorts of places across Wisconsin. And then Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer, who's from my home city of Milwaukee.
Dahmer?
Dahmer is, yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Mm.
know that.
Yeah,
Dahmer is an interesting one. Dahmer's the one who ate the kids, right?
Just
yeah,
victims.
Or
yeah,
just
kind of,
victims,
yeah.
not kids. It
Yeah.
was victims. Right. I'm thinking
It was
John
like
Wayne
Hansel and
Gacy.
Gretel over here.
Yeah, I think Gacy's one that ate children. Ed Gein is always one that's super weird to me. It also happens to be a really good band for anyone out there listening. But Ed Gein, for those who don't know, he would like to wear people that he dug up. Super
Lovely.
and inspired American
Hannibal
Psycho.
Lecter.
No,
Oh, Psycho.
so the guy in Psycho who
Oh.
kind of wore his, the
Oh.
character from the Hitchcock film who was
Okay.
dressed like his
Like his
mother.
mother?
Yeah. Very similar stuff. So, all right, you're like the perfect caller for tonight from our conversation earlier with BX because you had this weird satanic story, but you also have another story I believe you had to share with us.
Yeah. So I'm gonna only cover probably a little bit, like a 1,000-foot view of it, because there's a lot to unpack, and hopefully we can go over that in the future.
Yeah.
So about 2017, I got really involved in firearm ownership. Like 2016, 2017, kind of got really involved in the politics of it, and started organizing 2A events at my capital here because I lived in Madison. So I wanted to do that. I found a group that was organizing a 50-state protest. I reached out to them and I asked them, do you need any help in Wisconsin organizing, at our capital? They said, yeah, we don't have anybody to actually be the main organizer. So I started doing that. Shortly after that, for no reason other than like I was involved in politics, I get a message on my voicemail and it says, I'm Special Agent so and so of the FBI. We just want to talk to you.
Oh boy.
Uh, and I hadn't done anything. And at this point, like I had a healthy skepticism of the FBI already,
Hmm.
just because I'm like kind of an anti-authority type of guy.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh man. So I call them back and they're like, oh no, we just want to meet you because you have like a unique perspective and such on in the 2A community, because there's a pretty hefty militia scene, or there was a hefty militia scene out in Wisconsin before a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about unfolded.
Yep.
So they wanted to meet me at a Starbucks. I was kind of freaked out, so I had two of my good friends there who arrived a little bit early.
Smart.
They were sitting there, before the FBI got there or whatever. I was just like, I just want to make sure I don't get black bagged or anything. I just don't want to disappear. Nobody knows where I am, because like this is really weird. I have done nothing. I've only organized a protest. You know what I mean? Like we've literally done nothing other than that. So I was just kind of worried,
Hmm.
So I go out and they're like, we just want to know if you know of anybody who's an extremist or somebody that might be dangerous or anything. And I'm like, I don't know any. I mean, I just started doing this, um just I hang out with people who like the Second Amendment. Nobody really is wants to do anything bad or do anything extreme.
Hmm.
And so they keep kind of pressing me and I just like, whatever, we're just supporters of the Second Amendment. I don't know what to tell you. And so he's like, okay, all right, have a nice day or whatever. Well, that's just like the beginning of a horror story, because after the meeting, my friends who are trolls uh, decided to put the pictures of the agents online, and
Oh boy.
yeah, so. All
They,
right, so I go and I continually get calls from the FBI on and off, just like harassing me, asking me about stuff because I continue to organize. I organized an event in 2018 as well as ran for state assembly for the Libertarian Party. So I organized this event kind of around my candidacy as well as just supporting firearms rights in general. It was like 100 people. For some reason, Democracy Now! Brought out like 5, 6, 700 people to protest us.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, like for just this little group of people.
Huh.
Um,
And
and you know,
Democracy Now! As in like the media organization?
yeah, Democracy Now! Like kind of like they put out this thing, Nazis are gathering in
Yeah.
Wisconsin's capital, and
Wow.
I heard stories of that they bust people in. I can't prove that,
Right.
but there were tons of people.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
And so about this time, I start getting harassed by Antifa and such. Um, continue to organize, continue to do political stuff. And shortly after, or shortly before the 2018 event, this guy named Steve Robeson, like, starts really, really taking a liking to me or wanting to like. He's like, I want to get involved with what you do, man. I really admire you. You're doing you're doing what you need to do to support the Second Amendment, brother. Like, I want to help you do this. Well, turns out that this guy is a CHS
Yep.
for the FBI.
How long did it take you to figure that one out?
Too long. I wish I would have figured it out sooner because this led into me becoming. So I didn't know this at the time. I had become the Wisconsin target of a FBI investigation that ended up getting linked to the Whitmer thing.
Damn. The Fed napping.
Robeson
for
is
those
one
who
of the
don't
main
know.
informants that the FBI had working for the Whitmer thing, but they ended up having to drop him because he was doing a ton of illegal stuff and was also a pedophile that they had covered. They covered up the fact that he was a pedophile because I had researched him on CCAP and like criminal background checks.
Mm-hmm.
He had nothing. I will swear to this on to anybody. I'd go to court and swear this. I checked him out. There was nothing. So they either blocked out his record or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But shortly after the case drops, we find out, and they drop him as a CHS. We find out this guy was a pedophile. He had been the FBI knew this and had been putting him in the groups because we hung out with each other's families, and like we'd pray together. We'd have picnics together. I mean, it was a very family oriented atmosphere.
Right.
They knew this and they inserted this guy into our midst, knowing that there were kids and pool parties going on.
That's evil.
And also, yeah,
That's evil. So how did he reach out again? Was it online?
So he had come to one of my first protest, the one that I reached out to I think the organization was the National Constitutional Coalition of Patriotic Americans, kind of a mouthful. So that was my first event, and he was kind of there silently, like he didn't say much, he didn't really do much. He just was kind of an imposing figure. He's a real big, heavy set guy, not very in shape, just huge, just a bulk of a man. But he attended with a guy that I really didn't like. Whose name was Mark Groom. And when I first organized my protest, this Mark Groom guy reaches out to me and he's like, I'm the commander of the Wisconsin militias, and how dare you organize without my permission? And I'm like, I don't know who you are, dude, but like, I'm not asking permission for anything. Like, that's kind of the point of the protest. Like,
exactly.
Like, I don't know who you are. Like, stop.
Right.
And then he ends up like coming to the protest with Roby. Or we called him Roby. His name is Robeson, but we called him Roby. And he gives me a card, and he's like, I'm real sorry. I kind of came at you the wrong way. And I was like, yeah, you did. Well, during this event, this Mark Groom guy, who I believe is also an FBI informant, we found out. I've worked with Radix a lot on this. Like we all kind of communicate. So I think Christina.
Oh yeah.
So
she's been on the show. Big fan.
Yeah. So she's kind of helped us piece this together as well and piece the information together. Well, this Mark Room guy comes to my event. I have a bunch of people scheduled. This is the first time I've organized anything. One of the speakers is late, so I'm kind of panicking, and I'm like, shit, this is like dead air. Like, that's not good. Like, you don't want to lose people.
Right.
So since Phil Anderson, who was like the Libertarian Party like candidate, was late, I thought it was a good idea. Not a good idea, but I thought it was a good idea to have an open mic. So this Mark Groom guy gets up there and he's like, we need to arrest and jail the tyrants and hang them from trees and but this, that, and the other thing, anything like Fed posting in real life.
Yeah.
Like just, and I'm just
Sabotaging
like,
you.
yeah, and I'm just smacking my head and I'm like, what the hell, dude?
Mm-hmm.
And so like after that, I kind of like stay away from Roby and them.
Right.
So Roby like does things to like gain my trust because I'm like, dude, like you're with that dude that like says crazy shit and like came at me wrong. I don't want anything to do with you. And he's like, I just really want to work with you, man. So he's like, I won't, I'll leave his group because he was in some militia with the dude. And he's like, I'll leave his group, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, that guy went above and beyond, like, to try to prove to me that he's not dealing with this dude, which was my main concern. Because it's like I don't care what he is, I just know that he's not somebody I want to be around. So this Mark Groom guy has to go, and like I don't know, man. Like I'm still pretty naive. I'm just getting into things, so like I'm thinking if this guy is like going through all these hassles to like work with me, I'm like I don't want to be like a dick either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I end up letting him in, and he kind of gains my trust, and so like, and he does a lot of stuff that like kind of helps me out. He helps me get to a couple of meetings in a different or not meetings, but protests in different states.
Mm-hmm.
After like down the line, he starts organizing meetings.